we're going to give you our landline number, which is 256-461-1958. This is for your questions if you want to call in, or you can post them in the comments. Again, that's 256-461-1958. And so let me tell you about what I was hearing from the Lord this morning about the coronavirus. First of all, I saw in the beginning when God created Adam and Eve, what did he do to Adam? It says he breathed life into Adam. He breathed life into his lungs. And one thing they say, the scientists are saying about the coronavirus, is that that particular entity attaches itself to the lungs. And immediately I just saw the Lord breathing life into our lungs. And so why don't we sing this song together this morning? It's called Great Are You, Lord. Okay, we're just going to do it a couple of times. And Father, we just thank you for what you're doing. We thank you for your great blessings. We thank you that you're a good God and you're faithful. And Lord, we pray for our families, our friends, our co-workers, our neighbors. And we pray just for humanity across the earth. Father, that you would bring life and blessing as you already have and continue to bring life and blessing in our lives. We thank you that you're faithful and that you're loving. And we give you the praise in Jesus' name. You give life, you are love, you bring light to the darkness, you are hope, you restore every heart that is broken. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. Great are you, Lord. You give life, you are love, you bring light to the darkness, you give hope, you restore every heart that is broken. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. Great are you, Lord. All the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. All the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only.
We had a little sound difficulty at the very beginning. We had a different mic that went out. So in case people didn't catch it, if you do have a question as we begin our financial discussion, the number is 256-461-1958.
Yes.
Or you can post on the page.
Yes, yes. Do we have anybody joining us this morning?
We got a few.
All right.
All right.
Yeah, I'm glad you could be with us today. LeBron, good to see you on here. Ken and Brad, 3 others. All right, glad y'all are with us this morning. All right, so we've been talking the last several weeks about money. We've been talking about giving. We've been talking about sharing. We've been talking about a poverty mindset. We talked about several of the miracles in the scriptures pertaining to money. You know, one story I didn't even think to share this past several weeks, and especially during tax season, and we know that is in the process. Have they solidified that tax?
They've postponed it.
They postponed the tax season to push it out to another date. But there was a story when Jesus was talking about render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and unto God what is God. But the funny thing is when the Lord told them to go fishing. And he told them to go fishing, and they found the coin in the fish's mouth, and that's what they paid their taxes with. How cool is that? Talk about needing a miracle during that time. There was even provision that way. And listen, miracles never stop. God is the God of miracles, and things are still happening, and he's still going to take care of us, even in hard times and uncertain times. So guys, what do we want to talk about today? I know we've been talking about borrowing, we've been talking about saving, we've been talking about lending. So what are some things y'all want to share today where we are as far as learning how to manage money and stay within our means?
Well, the first thing I wanted to, is kind of a disclaimer. We're going to be talking in a lot of generalities about financial planning. So if you need specific guidance, you need to talk to somebody one-on-one, and this is going to be kind of an overview generality. So
sounds good. Sounds good. All right. How about I pose the first question?
Sure.
How about that? Let's talk about, which we haven't really, about establishing credit. How about we go there? How many of you know credit is an interesting thing because your name is attached to it. There are FICO scores attached to it. And you hear about all these scores and how you are rated, but you really can't get those good scores unless you have credit. How do we do that? Any suggestions that you would tell a young person, maybe just starting out? What if they're ready just to jump out there and get 5 and 6 credit cards? We saw some cringing.
Well, I think a couple of us had talked about this earlier, that with similar backgrounds on that. It's tough, you know, it's that, how do I get experience without starting, blah, blah. Same thing with credit. I think a common one I've heard and done myself, even under someone else's guidance, was it's tough to get the big bank credit cards with the lower interest at first. You're gonna have to pay more. But it's hard to even get in the door. So the easiest way to even start, honestly, is a store credit card, which those are risky later on, but to get started, they're good. They'll hand them out left and right. You get one, make a charge or two of something small, and kind of play their game. 1 month you pay the whole thing off. The next time you buy something, you pay 50%, and then the next month you finish it off.
Now, why is that important, Chris? I mean, they've got really high interest. Don't they have high interest on these credit cards?
And you know, you never want to say, oh, hey, I recommend you keep a balance, and I recommend you keep that high interest.
Okay.
But in the beginning, you have to play the computer scoring game. So you're already going to suffer because you don't have the credit history. You don't show having an account for 10, 20 years.
Okay.
If you pay it off all the time, they actually don't like that in a customer. The computer will downscore you.
Okay.
So if you got a brand new card, you made a charge and you paid it off, you'll actually lose quite a number of points for that. So you leave open a small balance and then you pay it off again. I've never seen anyone take longer than 3 to 6 months of playing that game, and then you can go out and get a better card with a lower interest rate.
Mm-hmm.
Then you put the store card away in a drawer.
Okay.
Don't cancel it. Because if you cancel it, now you've got a 6-month card or less
Right.
on your credit report.
Right.
And that affects your total time of credit, which is a big indicator on your scoring.
Right.
Yeah, and one mistake I made, when I thought I was smart back in my 20s was, the 0% balance transfer. And so I would have a credit card to help me pay off my bills and then balance transfer it. And so I never paid interest, but the problem is, not only do you end up with all these accounts, but I closed each one as I transfer the balance to a new one.
Okay.
A lot of closed accounts will ding your FICO score as well, so.
Okay. Brad made a comment. One way is to start with a prepaid credit card with your chosen bank, credit union. You deposit your savings and use it to begin creating credit with your chosen bank or credit union.
Yeah, that's a good recommendation too. I
Okay,
like that.
excellent.
Yeah.
All right. Also, another thing is that there's a recommendation where someone says pay cash only. We have another if you can pay cash, yes. My dad was a cash man. He
Yeah.
was that generation.
At
was
this
a cash
point,
man.
though, we're talking about how to get credit established.
Correct.
If you want to buy a house at some point, you're going to need to get your credit established.
Okay.
And if you don't use credit, you're never going to have a credit score.
Okay. Also, another one says, let's pay off the monthly balance. Now, I know with my credit card through the bank, I choose to pay off my monthly balance every month. So there is some good discussion there that it's good to help with your credit to increase because they're looking at risk. Isn't that a factor?
Yeah.
The risk, what kind of risk you are. So they do want you to have some balance. That also helps with lending later on, but they do want you to pay it off as well. So isn't it a weird sliding scale there?
Especially in the beginning, it's quite the game, and you have to learn their game up front. You have to know what those rules are.
Right.
So you have to be aware that they're going to look at how long you keep an account, how long it took you to pay it off. Did you ever miss a payment? Because missed payments will show up. So anything over 30 days on a credit card is gonna show up, and you can't even shake a missed payment for a while. That's
Okay.
on the risk.
All right. We have a gentleman said for young people, Fingerhut is a decent option, and they do report positive history to credit bureaus.
Yeah.
I did not even think about Fingerhut.
Back in our day, back in my day, I should say, not everybody's as old as I am. It was Sears. That was the
Yeah,
one.
Sears.
It was 23% interest,
Yep.
but they pretty much handed them out like business cards. So
Right.
you can get one, and the idea
Right.
is like Chris said, you charge a couple small things,
Okay.
you pay half off, or you get a plan together. You just don't want to pay it all off from the beginning. However,
Okay.
back to what you were saying, when you've had a credit established a long time and you've got a decent credit score, I don't like carrying a balance because, especially if you have a credit card that gives you cash back at the end of the year, if you're paying, say, 10% in interest, but you're getting 2% back at the end of the year, you're not really getting anything. You're
Okay.
just paying 8% interest.
Excellent. I have a question here. How can you help your credit if you have bad credit? Let's talk about this. This is a very good question. How can we help with that?
Well, first thing I would do is make sure you pull your credit report. So
Okay.
you can see if there's anything wrong on there, faults, because there are ways to submit data and stuff if there is something erroneous on there.
Okay. Very good.
That's the first step.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you kind of have to revert back to when you had no credit. You're gonna have to go back to
Start back over.
keep things minimal.
Okay.
Because it's gonna hurt when you go buy a car and anything. So it's tough. You're gonna have to kind of give and take a little on all. I understand they're gonna charge me. It's not fair. It doesn't feel fair or right. But when I go buy that car, I might have to buy it at one of these little lots, or I might get hit with a bigger interest rate at a big lot. But get what you can afford with that interest rate.
Okay.
Stay perfect. When you have a bad credit score or you have something that's negative impacting, you have to be so careful. I would say even, put the money in a jar when you're doing that. Hey, I'm gonna go buy this. You've got bad credit and you got high interest rate. So when you buy that $100 thing and you pay the 50 or whatever, that money needs to be somewhere. Don't go, oh, well, it's okay. I missed it this month. I'll get it next time.
Okay.
because that hole just keeps getting deeper, and the timeline that gets
Okay.
pushed out. So you have a couple small mistakes. It's okay. Every day is a new chance to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
If you kick it down the road further, you make a 60-day mistake that could affect you for 5 years.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Right.
really be careful and choose carefully what you're carrying and opening for new accounts.
Okay. Also, Sean says that free credit report, you can get one a year.
Yeah.
So that's a good reminder. Thank you.
And depending on where you bank, sometimes they have special offers. Like I know at like Redstone, you can get your FICO score at almost any point. That's not a
Okay.
credit report.
Excellent.
That's just a snapshot that people who loan money will look at.
Okay. Well, can I chase a rabbit for just a second regarding credit?
Yeah.
Which is related to living within our means. Can we talk about that?
Yes.
Because I think not living within our means leads us to make some bad choices because of a want rather than a need. So how do we deal with this? How do we live within our means? Anybody want to tackle that?
Well, it first comes to making smart decisions.
Yes.
And really evaluating especially for big purchases, like large purchases that you're gonna make, whether it be a car or even nowadays cell phones. So that's my background. I work for the wireless industry, and phones used to be maybe $150 retail.
Yeah.
Now they're $1,500. So that's actually a large purchase, and really think about in your personal situation. I can't make this decision for you, but is the new iPhone 10, 11 Max Pro, is that a need
Come on.
because
yeah.
your business that you work, or is it a want? I love having shiny new things myself. And it feels good to have something nice and new, and but really think about what you're purchasing, and like if you don't have the money in your pocket to purchase that phone full retail that day, maybe it's not in your budget.
Right.
And with working in the wireless industry, I work there's lots of options. Like we have phones that cost $100 full retail up to $1,500. So it depends. And the cheapest one, it's not going to be the fanciest, but you can call, text, and use internet and take a picture. So, but there's options for you.
Good deal.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about that budget. How many people really live on a budget? And do we need to live on a budget?
Most people have
Let's
one
start
in
there.
their head, and so they think they have a budget. But to me, I've always said, my rule of thumb is, if someone asks you right now how much you have in the bank, can you answer them? Most people can't,
That's true.
not to the penny. Or what are your bills equal every month?
Right.
Well, they might could list their rent, mortgage, whatever, in their car payment. But do you know how much you spend on food within the nearest $10? And that's the thing with budgets that I've worked on, is I've always told people for 1 month, spend like you normally do, but keep every single receipt or log it somewhere, every single penny you spend, cash, credit, whatever. And then at the end of that month, you can really take a look and see exactly what you spent on gas, shopping, anything. And that's the best way to figure out where you can cut or pull down some spending.
Well, I know that was the best thing for me that I have ever done, because I thought I had a budget, but I really didn't have a budget. My budget, like you said, was in my head. And then finally, when I started keeping a budget, I realized Taco Bell was getting about 20% every month. And so, that's the truth, we just had to make some adjustments. And I will say a note on that it really, I know some of us probably are not eating out as much right now, but it is less expensive to cook at home if you can than rather to eat out all the time.
Can I say something about that?
Yes, go right ahead.
So I was kind of the same way, because I used to not look at my bank account really, and I was like, okay, I wonder how much I'm spending eating out. So I went back 3 months and I saw like, oh my goodness, it's expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking like $10 easy
Yes.
on one meal, at a restaurant. Even that's fast food.
Oh,
So I mean, there's
Yeah.
lots of ways to cut back as far as
Excellent.
food. Yeah.
Excellent. Hey, we do have a question about the budget. One asks, does anyone have a budget sheet you can suggest? And also, along with that, Brad did comment to say that Mint.com really helps keep me focused on what I am doing with money. And Curtis says, yes, you can use mint.com for that. And I think you guys were also, if you may have something available later on to put up on the page, they can help as well, show you kind of a template of a budget.
Chris and I both have, yours is PowerPoint, not PowerPoint,
It's
Excel.
Excel, yeah.
Okay.
So we both have Excel. Mine's color coded, simple, and I've shared it with other people in order to help them. It's really simple, and we're trying to probably put a shell up later so you can use it on your own. Chris
Yeah.
has got one and I've got one.
Yeah, and
Okay.
Mint.com is very cool. They're actually owned by Intuit, the same people that make
Yes.
TurboTax.
Yeah.
I used them in the past. I think what's really neat, in order to make Mint and some of those online checking account and budgeting systems work, is that you can actually get that ball rolling. Regions and Redstone are the two big local banking institutions that everyone uses. They're trying to help people with that. So there's a category field. You can actually go through and ask both of those banks to run you a report. So it knows what
Okay.
Publix is, it knows what
Okay.
McDonald's is. You can actually go through and get that ball rolling so that when you sit down and go, oh, I probably spend $100 a month on eating out, and I probably spend $50 a month on incidentals. Well, you go hit that button, you might go, oh. And then once you start digging down, you go, well, I went to Target, sure, but I needed that $100. That's where you need to be honest with yourself and sit down with a
Okay.
receipt and go, well, I did buy $30 worth of.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to the whole reason that I say for keeping the month long is so, a lot of people say, well, I did this because I could afford it. But can you really afford it? Because if you're coming up short in another category,
Okay.
or if you have debt, that's my personal thing. I hate debt. So I do whatever I can to avoid it.
So should we constantly be evaluating our budget to see, especially if we're coming up short, where
Oh,
we
yeah.
need to make adjustments? Do we need to continue?
And
to
I
look
would
at
say
that?
get counsel as well. If
Okay.
you know someone who is good with money or that's what they do for a living, we've got plenty of people in our church that, can give you advice too.
Yeah,
I mean, and let's not overcomplicate it.
Right.
So this is, live on less than what you make.
There
I mean,
you
that's
go.
the big picture, right?
Yes.
But the bottom line is know what you're making and know where your money's going, so
Yeah.
you can do that.
And that's exactly what one of our listeners said this morning, to set a budget, live within it. And he said, treat yourself occasionally. Work to get yourself debt free. My partner and I have worked hard, but we are debt free today. Home is paid for. Now, when he said that, that does bring up another thought, especially right now. Can we look at some scenarios regarding, this is part of budgeting as well, regarding buying a home, renting a home, or renting an apartment? And what about young people who right now may not make a lot of money? How do you advise them? This is a loaded question. With budget, how do you advise them with rental? With renting or buying? Do they need to live with somebody? Let's look at some different scenarios with
Well,
this
it
morning.
kind of goes back to what Dave said. The basic principle is what can you really afford?
Okay.
If you don't look at your true ins and outs, what you have, your money coming and going,
Right.
you think, well, yeah, I can afford $600 a month in rent.
Okay.
But if you actually calculated it, no, you can't. Not when you have medical bills, prescriptions, gasoline, other needs. So, not everybody likes to do the roommate thing, but a lot of times that's what you have to do in order to get a head start, to get that money put aside. I've always said, well, not just me, I don't want to take credit for this, you should have about 6 months of your salary in some sort of savings. That's your emergency fund. It's hard to get there. But if you cut your spending, like roommates and taking in a renter, that sort of thing can help.
Yeah, I think, so, although I have the template for a budget, right, so it starts with, spending less than you take in.
Okay.
When you use a budget, regardless of whose it is, whether it's mint.com or one of our templates or you make your own, it's really about being honest with yourself. And one of the things I do on the second tab is when when you're making a budget, you're doing it for a reason, right? And first thing is, don't punish yourself. You know, it's like if you're dieting or quitting smoking or anything, when you're doing a budget, be fair to yourself, be honest with yourself,
Okay.
and forgive yourself for making a mistake one
Very
month,
good.
right? On my second tab of my spreadsheet, I have a goals, because we all have a budget for two reasons, right? One is to survive, and one is your dream goal, whatever it is. So I maintain a wish list of, hey, these are things that I would love to do to my house or
Very
in my
good.
life or
Okay.
whatever.
Okay.
We'd like to do a vacation this year, so that every time we go, can we do this? We might go, yes, we can fit it in the budget, or no, but oh well, we'll take the hit this month. We'll leave $50 on the credit card or whatever that amount is. Or no, I'm not going to, because do I need this really when it comes compared to my vacation with the family or whatever your thing is? So when you're doing the budget, I mean, you really need to even ask yourself, what are you budgeting for other than the daily survival?
Okay.
Do you want to buy a house? Do you not want to buy a house? Some people don't want a house, and that's
Right.
fine. You know, whatever your thing is, do you want to stay?
Yeah, that's one of the things I'd written down too. If you're pursuing a goal, let's say your dream is home ownership,
Okay.
and you don't know how you're ever going to get there. If that's your goal, everything you do to take in roommates or split costs right now, that's just temporary. I think a lot of people get caught up in the, oh, I don't want that. But it's temporary. Once you achieve your goal, you don't need to do that anymore. Everything's a means to an end.
Has anybody watched the Dave Ramsey YouTube channel?
No, but I am familiar with some of his.
Yeah, I mean, he has some really
Larry
good ideas,
Burkett,
and
yeah.
I would recommend anybody look into his.
Yeah.
you
I've
know,
always
his
been a
program, and-
Susie Ormond person
Yeah,
myself.
well, yeah, I'm sure. But yeah, I was kind of fascinated watching some of those the other day.
You know, one of the first ways I did start saving and allocating my money was the envelope
Yep.
practice. And I noticed someone said in here, you know, about cash and because they may forget their budget. But I know starting out, especially, I had to learn how to allocate money. That was my first encounter with the budget, so to speak, was to have the little envelopes where you put each money. So if I ran out of money for that envelope, I mean, in that section, say it was my coffee money or soda
Yeah.
money for the week,
Mm.
well, you're done.
Oh, yeah.
You're done with your soda money for the week.
The only issue these days with that kind of system is not everybody carries cash anymore.
Absolutely.
Thus,
Absolutely.
while we've created Excel spreadsheets, they do the same thing.
Absolutely, that was the point. That just kind of
Mm-hmm.
that's how we're kind of flowing that. I do want to go back and just highlight that Kenneth was saying, please check your accounts daily, especially during this
Mm-hmm.
time. Please check your accounts for any fraudulent transactions. And most institutions will not allow you to dispute beyond 90 days. Daily monitoring your account, you could easily be losing money. So we need to be aware of
It's the
that.
same thing what I was saying with the credit report. It's good
Yes.
to know your credit report.
Right.
I pulled mine and there's like crazy misspellings of my name and stuff like that. So I've worked to get some of that cleared off.
Okay. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to call in 256-461-1958. We can take a live call, or you can post it here on our Facebook. We're getting some amazing response. Yes, Dave Ramsey has a great plan in helping break down that budget. Kevin says, one idea to save, open a savings account and an auto deposit of a percentage of your payroll or manual deposit. It may seem small at first, but it grows.
Yeah.
Plus, do not get a debit card or a way to get access to it. Absolutely.
Yeah, I always say you need to have at least one account that you're putting something in that you don't touch.
Yeah.
So this is the question then. Can everybody save?
Yeah.
Is it possible?
I mean, there's, what was it, Acorn or whatever? There was an app that you could use and it would round up all your purchases to the nearest dollar.
Yes.
And it would save those change for you.
Yeah.
And it was, you could see it grow over time.
Because you should be rounding it on your budget and in your head anyway.
Right.
So that's a neat way to do it, is to go ahead and
Round
say,
up.
well, instead of saying, well, because when you're doing your budget, you're not necessarily like, well, I spent $18 at Target. You're like, I spent $20.
Right.
or at least you should.
Okay.
That's another part of that whole being honest with yourself.
Right.
You really need to sit down and go, you know, you can't say, well, I make, I'll just pick a number. I make 500-ish a week. And you really never have pulled over 460.
Right.
Be real.
Real
When
with
the
the
bill
numbers.
comes in, if I sat down with, you know, last 24 months of your electric bill and it comes
Thanks,
out
Brad.
to 370, don't put 250 on there, because people do it by accident. It's just how we deal with things, right? We make the good look better, we make the bad look not as bad. In our brain, you really need to sit down and be honest with yourself, because
And I always overestimate like that. I always do. If your utility bill typically runs $250, I always budget for $275.
Okay.
Because if there's an error, I want it to be in my favor, not the bank's.
yeah, in the auto transfer, I'll tell you, so right on my budget, the very last one, it's marked, it says auto transfer to savings, and there's a big star on the value, and a comment, and it says, this cannot change. Because one thing that will nail people in the beginning of doing a budget is they'll forget, maybe they're not doing the auto insurance monthly. They're like, oh, if I do quarterly, I save some money, or if I do biannual, but they leave it off the budget. So you either have to say it, you know, so then you go, well, it's $100 a month, let's just
Right.
say, right?
Right.
Well, if you're not paying it monthly, you know how easy it is to spend that $100 somewhere
It'll get
else?
lost.
What I do is I auto transfer it to the other account. And that's starred, like that happens first. So when I get my check, that money moves immediately to bills that you won't see for a little while. Or maybe that's I have to go to the dentist, I need new glasses, so I'm gonna transfer $50,
Okay.
you know, for a couple of months until I can do that thing I need versus want.
So one comment was made, when you get a raise, let's talk about that. When additional monies do come in, what typically happens to those monies?
Shopping.
Yeah, usually you spend what you make. I mean, whether that be in bills or something. The best idea is to always pay yourself first.
Okay. So Curtis said, put part of that raise aside as a bigger amount of savings. Saving. Natalie, doesn't that go back to if you want to buy, say you're wanting to buy that house, but there were sacrifices that need to be made.
Yes.
You said part of that, you need find a roommate.
Yeah.
That was one solution. So that you can continue to put these additional savings. If you don't put it in savings, what happens to this money? It will be spent
Oh,
on
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
It's consumerism. We just have a tendency to want to spend any excess that we have.
I lived 8 years in a studio apartment for a reason, because that's what I was putting my money aside for.
Right, to get a house.
So, well, not a house, but something more permanent.
Yeah, we kind of chatted a little bit about the whole savings thing, and I think that stuff has changed. You know, from when we were kids, we had passport savings accounts. Back then, a mortgage was 12% back in the 80s.
Right.
But you got paid 6% on your savings account.
Yeah.
Well, so when people are thinking and doing their budget and they're upset saying, well, I'm not saving, or I am saving, I think I'm doing pretty good, but for some reason my bills are crushing me.
Okay.
Today isn't the same as 1980, right? With a 1.25 federal rate, we think, oh, well, you know, they're being fair. No, the banks are paying us 0.05 and calling it a service.
Okay.
You know, remember, banks exist. Every time I put money in savings, I'm not the customer, the bank is. That's the reason you get interest. You are loaning the bank money every time you put it in savings.
That's right.
Over the years, we've forgotten that. So what's happening now is banks aren't paying me for my money, but they sure are on the credit card. So when people are planning their savings and trying to build credit, be careful that you don't focus so much on the savings that you dig a huge hole.
Okay.
If you got a credit card, that's 15, 20, 25%,
This is good.
don't focus on the, well, should I put $10 a week into savings? No, it's not worth it. You're not going to get anything letting that money sit there.
Okay.
Build a smaller nest egg and get that debt down. So if you've got $10 and you're going, should I put it in savings or should I put it on my credit card?
Pay on debt.
Put it on the debt
Pay on
every
debt.
time, because it'll pay you back
Yeah.
immediately. Your payments, your minimums will start going down because
Okay.
your balance is lower, right?
Mhm.
So at any time you have $20 and you're trying to go, which way should I go? I mean, if you have to go 15 on the bill and 5 to savings, but
Mhm.
always focus on a high interest debt, because
Mm.
it's easy to go, I'm not doing bad, I got money in savings, but if your
Right.
debt exceeds your savings by a huge amount,
Right.
I don't care how much you have in savings, you have less than zero.
So take care of all the debt.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's kind of like when you're
Excellent.
deciding to buy something or go on vacation. Do you put it on credit card or do you save up for it?
Mm.
You know, I, thanks to, I hate to bring a Redstone up, but the You Name It savings, I went nuts on them years ago. I had one for vacations, one for car, one for this, and I could do that. It made it a lot easier than trying to keep track of one account.
Yep.
Mhm.
Right. Well, and you know, so we talked about housing a little bit. Anybody got any other questions? Feel free to go ahead and comment. Something we were talking about earlier, Natalie and I, was we're going to hit this. What about should I spend buku-doodles of money on a wedding
Versus the marriage.
and the glorious one day event, or is it more, and we all want nice weddings, you know, we want nice weddings, but how can we have a nice wedding on a budget but yet use the majority of that money to really set up a good foundation for our home and for our marriage?
Well, I think that that's a mistake a lot of people make because like you said, there's a lot of people that want to have these big, fabulous weddings, and there's nothing wrong with that if you can afford it. It kind of goes back to what everybody's been saying. What can you truly afford?
Right.
I personally would rather spend, instead of $20,000 on a wedding, get $20,000 as a down payment on a home. That's me. But I mean, you know, there's give and take in everything. you
Well,
know.
you pose an interesting question. Let's just go there since we're going to hit this again, talking about a home. But what about the one who says, hey, that's not a problem. I can still do this elaborate wedding or this elaborate event, and yet I can still also have a home because don't you know they finance 100% of it?
Mhm.
Well,
I can get a loan to finance. Now, I've been in this situation before. Thank God I'm not in that anymore. That happened many years ago. Tell me why that is not a good idea.
well, first of all, let me say this, because you about hit the nail on the head. The number one reason for divorce is money problems.
Yep.
Yes.
So if you are starting out a marriage in the hole, that is going to make a huge challenge for the rest of your relationship.
Mhm.
I mean, there's other things that happen too,
Yes.
but money is always a big stressor.
Yep.
What was the question?
100%
So the question
finance.
was about the 100%. One time I financed a home at 100%, only to
With
sell
no down payment.
with no down payment, only to find out that 12 years later, when it was sold, there was only about $3,000 in equity.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know
So
someone
what-
that did it too.
That's
And
part of
that
the reason
company
that-
actually went under, by
That's
the way.
right.
So, anyway, what are your thoughts on that? People say, no, but I can finance my home for 100%. I don't have to put any money down.
If you don't, like I said, again, it goes to the individual. To me, if you can't put at least some money down, you can't afford it yet.
Right.
Unless you qualify for like FHA loans, VA loans, those are a little different. But traditionally, if you don't put at least 20% down, you're gonna have to pay PMI. And PMI is an additional charge on top of everything else, so.
And this is why we do say that when it comes to renting or purchasing a home, you have to look at your needs, be able to live within your means. Some people do better if they're going to be living in an area short term. It's probably not a good idea to buy, is it, guys? What are your
Right.
thoughts on
No.
that?
I mean, it depends on your personal situation. If you
Okay.
want to remain mobile because
Okay.
you don't know what your job situation is going to be,
Right.
it makes more sense to rent.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've always said if you're pretty sure you're not gonna be there at least 5 years, don't buy, because
Okay.
you're gonna end up in repairs, property taxes, even if your rent is exactly the same as your mortgage, there's a lot more expenses to houses.
Yeah, I was gonna say that too. There's the hidden cost of the home where you're like, oh, I need a lawnmower.
Right.
Oh, I need my
Plumber.
own
Yeah,
appliances.
yes.
I need services. Yeah, there's a lot of that. But yeah, I'm against the 100% financing for sure. 'Cause
Absolutely.
it'll usually catch you.
Another thing too, when we were talking about the marriage thing,
Mm-hmm.
transparency between spouses with the money.
Yes.
It's very important. A lot of people will debate you all day long about, should you have one account, both people have it on it, everybody have their individual accounts. That's a personal thing.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But transparency, without problem.
Yeah.
You know, we have separate accounts,
Yes.
but we check in all the time. What's going on? What do you have? Where we get, you know, we make
Right.
decisions together.
Hey, what's your thoughts about that? I'm interested, those that are watching this morning, what are your thoughts about the transparency? What are your thoughts about, should a couple have one account? Should a couple have two accounts? And here's another option I've heard before. Should each person have their individual account, but also maybe have a joint account for specific things?
Mm-hmm.
It
There's,
works.
I don't think it's right,
I mean,
wrong.
lots of scenarios work.
Yeah.
It just depends on the couple.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And
It's a personal thing, really.
sometimes you know, mine has changed. I went
Yes.
from like, I think you should not, everything should go in a bucket. I don't, you know, at the end of the day, like right now, you know, I don't do that. We each maintain our own, which I think a lot of women, you know, gave up that or long ago and maybe coming back around. It doesn't matter. I think as long as the budget is true and open
Mm-hmm.
and real with each other,
Mm-hmm.
there's actually some good benefits to each spouse having one. And the reason why is that, you know, even if one partner is good at doing the budget, they should lead in the budget prep, the paperwork, hey, I know this is a hard conversation, but we need to talk about what that goal that we had and how we're going to get there, and allowing the other person to control the money. So you've worked together on the budget and you've said, hey, this is, I need to feel I have a sense of ownership. I need to feel that I'm learning. So I have my budget and I'm going to spend on my stuff. And I think it is good to maintain some separate and some together. The together has to be on the budget though. You can't be, oh well, this is my money. That's gonna hurt later.
And I agree. I think the transparency,
The worst thing you can
It's
do,
important.
and a lot of people will do this, if your spouse is the one that's really good at budget and numbers, I'm just gonna trust you to do it, and I'm not ever gonna look at it, cause you're
Right.
gonna do it. It's great that you trust, but you still need to know what's
Absolutely.
going on. What happens if that partner gets killed?
absolutely.
Something bad happens, or
Yeah.
like what happened to me, you get left. You know,
You know,
you've gotta know where you stand.
that's exactly right. I wanna transition because we really, you know, the elephant in the room, so to speak,
Yeah.
with the COVID and the recession.
Mhm.
And I do, looking at a comment here this morning, how can we right now, one of the comments, I'm afraid that COVID is going to cause a recession. I know people are already feeling the effects.
It's,
This is real. This
it's
is
quite
real.
possible it might go beyond recession, in my opinion. Possible.
And I think this is the time where we promote sharing, bartering, giving, helping each other. Dave, you may have a skill. Say something happens in my home, you may have a skill, you know how to fix it. And I
Don't ask me to tell you about it. I've done that once.
Well, darn. But
Yeah,
there
so
are
I'll be able to
different
go.
skills that we can bring to the table for everyone in our communities, and that we can help, that may not necessarily have to involve a cash
Right.
Another part
exchange.
of the COVID thing is there's a lot of discussion about the stimulus package and sending Americans some money. The latest one that I heard was $1,200 a person or $2,400 a couple.
Right.
So before that happens, you need to ask yourself, what is your priority for that? Obviously, the reason they're giving it to you, they want you to spend it, thus stimulating the economy. However, my opinion, and probably most others, is that's not exactly what you should do with it. But
Yep, I agree 100%. Yeah. If so, for those people that are impacted right
Yes,
now and
yes,
out of
come
work,
on. Absolutely.
and of course we're all worried, are we gonna be?
Mm-hmm.
Normally, if it's a tax return, like, so the most similar thing I could compare it to is a tax return. Normally, I'm like, look, put a chunk, 70, a big percentage on your bills.
Right.
Give yourself a small treat, because your real treat is, hey, I'm going to be debt free, and I'm going to pay way less. My bills are going to drop by
Exactly.
50% by doing it. With this federal stimulus, yeah, I think they're close to signing now. It's $1,000 per adult, $500 per kid. I would say do not use that money for anything. I would say sit on it. If you're someone that lost your job, then you need that money right now
Yeah.
to survive.
Absolutely.
No want items at all.
Yeah.
If you're lucky and you are still working, no. I mean, the people we'd want to help are the people that are out of work,
Mm-hmm.
and we would want to stimulate that economy,
Yes.
and we can't anyway.
Right.
So wait, sit on it. Even if you stick it in savings and go, well, I'm gonna ride this out and see what happens on the other side. Then go out, maybe
Right.
put it towards a bill, go do something nice for yourself or you and your partner or whatever. But
So I think how can we've also got a question, how can we support our local businesses? And I want to add to these questions, how can we support our local businesses? How can we be mindful of spending during a type or possible recession? How can we yet still be generous and share what we have with each other? How can we create this generosity right now? Because there is, we've already seen it, we already have this hoarding, stingy mentality. We've seen it, it's been panic. And how can we stay out of that and be able to give?
Well, that's the thing. There's a lot. It's not just local businesses. It's going to be charities, nonprofits, churches. If you don't have money, how are how are these going to stay afloat? You have, say, a charity that feeds people,
Yeah.
homeless or whatever. Well, if people can't give money, then that charity can't do its work either.
Right.
So there is a lot to be said for that. I'm one of those that I always believe whatever I put out is going to come back, and so far I've been fortunate that it has. And so I think giving is the best thing you can do, and I try to do that first.
And I think, what resources, I think we always have a tendency to look at the glass half full or half empty.
Yeah.
What if we begin to look, what do we have? What can I give? Any questions on that? Let's see. Okay. We got let's see.
so
Go ahead, yes.
while you're kind of looking, so
Yeah.
we have in our home, we budget so much for going out. We have a strict so many times per month or dollar amount, whichever comes first. So with everybody doing curbside pickup or pick up and go, you don't have to, assuming you still have an income,
Yeah.
you can still go, hey, this is still within my budget.
Okay.
And we went to a local restaurant yesterday, as a matter of fact, and did a pick and go,
Okay.
because I'm not worried about McDonald's. They're gonna be fine,
Right.
but we went to a local store and gave them money, because they might get help, but those poor people had to let some people go.
Yes.
They had to change their
Yes.
whole world. So if you can do that, that's great. It's, and if you're in a situation you're like, well, it's on my budget, but I'm scared or I'm whatever,
Yeah.
go donate some time to some of the
Yes.
local places or to people nearby that need help.
Right.
And let's emphasize this. I want y'all to hear what Chris really is saying. You may not have money, but you can have time, talent, another resource that you can give to somebody else in need. That's what I'm saying. It is vital right now that we think different, that we learn to think outside of the box. We're so busy thinking about the greenback supporting everything, when now we can think differently. What do I have? What can I give? How can I be generous in that? How can I help somebody else? Sometimes your time and your attention is the most valuable thing that we can give to somebody else. Brad responded to the stimulus. If you're secure financially, perhaps find a nonprofit that aligns with your vision of serving others. Spend it with them and support them through these hard times as they serve the ones you have a passion to
That was
serve.
Brad.
Yeah, yeah,
And-
right
That was
on.
good, Brad.
And when you do have the opportunity to tip well, especially
Yes.
especially
So
in the
talk about
industries
that. Yeah.
where they don't even get minimum wage.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of people, even if they are full time, they're cutting back to be part time.
Yes.
So just keep in mind that what we do for other people makes the community stronger as a whole.
Absolutely.
And I've always said we're only as strong as our weakest link. So if you ignore this group of people, that is going to eventually affect you, because people who have not getting their needs met are desperate.
Yes.
Desperate people do desperate things,
Yes.
and that's how we have so many problems that happens, because
Yes.
the ones with the money or the time or the talent are not offering it
Yeah.
for fear or stinginess sometimes.
Yeah.
Let me just say too, as a church family, let's check on our brothers and sisters.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
Call somebody up.
Yes.
Because we are a family
Yeah.
and we want to take care of each other, especially during this time of need. So it's important to not just
Absolutely.
not just post on Facebook, but actually pick up the phone and call them.
Yes, I agree.
Get that voice to voice contact
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
check on each other.
And
Yeah.
also for people with needs, I know we've got this on the partner page pinned, for if you have a need, you can submit it on that post. But also in the public page, you can always hit the message button, and that'll come directly to Madge, myself, or Ken.
Good. That's awesome. Also, Curtis said you can shop at a Mission thrift shop that's local,
Yeah.
and that's a charity as well. That's a great way to start rethinking, restructuring. Hey, I love a thrift shop. Me and Ken love thrift shops, and so we'll go thrift shopping. And it is a great way to support the community. So I think we're just probably going to close up here for the day, but it's not going to stop. If you want to continue to send your questions to us about different things pertaining to finance, money, or resources, or giving,
Or specific questions that might be, specific to you.
yes, we want to hear from you. We want to be able to do our best to help support in this time. And more than anything, we want everyone to know who is watching or will watch this, if we can help, we will do our best and help in any way that we can. So this is the time to be generous. This is the time to give into the community more than ever. This is what Jesus was always talking about. He said he didn't come to be served, but he came to serve. This is our time to serve. Every day is an opportunity for us to give in some way. I think if we will take a moment just to look around, there will always be an opportunity to give into a need that is present. If you have that need, we want to help you. And so I'm glad you joined us today. I want to close with this one reminder that talk about stepping out of the box and doing things a little different. Tomorrow night at 7 p.m. from your home, we all want to, as a community around the nation and around the world, for those who want to join us, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, we're going to have communion. And whatever elements you want to use to do that, we're going to join together as the body of Christ and have communion. If you can't join us at that time, it will be Tuesday morning at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time, and we're going to be on together just celebrating what Christ did for us and is doing for us right now. So we love you guys. Thank you guys for your part in sharing. And let's just pray this morning. Thank you, Father, for your goodness, for your provision. Thank you for your blessings. Help us to be mindful of what you've given us and how we can give that away to others. And we give you all the praise in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you for joining us today.
Bye-bye.